another thing that killed things before it was Nirvana. They essentially changed music when they came out, and this is going to kick off getting into the 90s alternative. This is the end of glam rock. We're starting to see new things. Nirvana takes stage and the whole world changes musically, at least in my opinion. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's very funny that you mentioned that, because it totally is. That was, and it wasn't even just the hair and the glam bands that took a hit. It was metal in general. Like
Yeah, metal changed
in
for sure.
19 like in 1990, MTV's Music Video Awards finale, the big winner of the evening was Queensryche's Silent Lucidity. That was the big song. Now, here's the funny thing about that. Queensryche is from Seattle, Washington. Now, nobody is going to equate Seattle's music with Queensryche, and I'm a huge Queensryche fan. I've seen them countless times, but it was the end of it. It was almost the end of the era. Your metal bands took a hit. Obviously, your hair bands took a hit. Nobody, poor Stewart was in trouble. Nobody was listening to Winger anymore because that Smells Like Teen Spirit video hit, and it was just like boom. The world has just changed. And what's weird about it is it's not like Nirvana was doing anything that nobody did before. I mean, they were writing great 3-chord pop songs essentially that were heavy,
Right.
but but they were in pop structure, and you had bands in the 80s, Dinosaur Jr., Sonic Youth, that were making that sound. But Nirvana came along, and for whatever reason, it just hit with the mainstream. And Smells Like Teen Spirit hit, and you could not get away from it. It was everywhere, and it was a really cool and exciting time.
Yeah, I think it probably happens every once in a while where collectively, like the hive mind of the people were just like so done with everything that happened for not obviously the 80s weren't bad or anything. I think everybody was just ready to move on and do something different. And that was really like the match to ignite the fire that would have been burning. The fuel was already there. Nirvana just lit the match and threw the shit in.
Yeah, and I think, like, when I was talking about the bands previously, I just don't think, maybe people just weren't quite ready for it.
Maybe
people were still in the 80s, and it was the time of excess. It was look at my cool clothes and I want to do some lines of cocaine. That was the 80s.
And here's Kurt Cobain coming out looking like a homeless person with his flannel, some torn up jeans and shit, like not looking like he gave a fuck. He might not even showered for a couple days before he came out stage.
Yeah, like I remember reading an interview with Dave Grohl where he said, Nirvana, we weren't doing anything that Husker Du didn't do 10 years earlier. It just I guess America wasn't ready for it. And, then all of a sudden it was. And at me as a, 11, 12-year-old kid, I could not be more susceptible to being attracted to that.
Going back and getting into music later, it connected even more with me because I got into music a little bit later. So like watching this video in high school and shit, I was just like, oh my God, like there's so much energy and shit. And being a teenager and having a bunch of angst and shit and being mad at the way the world was and not understanding why shit happens the way it did. Like that was like having music like that was like a total like release. Like this is amazing. And then showing them like rocking out in like a school and just like essentially destroying that gymnasium by the end of that video. It was a low budget video. It clearly didn't cost like a ton to make, but it will forever stick in your mind. Like similar to like that What a Man video. That wasn't like a huge budget or anything, but like you'll remember it once you see it.
Yeah, and we can't talk about Smells Like Teen Spirit without talking about the Weird Al parody Smells Like Nirvana. And that video was so great. And they even got the same janitor. He even got the same janitor.
Dude, we could have a whole show on Weird Al. I love Weird Al. He's great, man.
Oh, Weird Al is an absolute genius. I could do a whole episode on Weird Al originals that aren't parodies, that are just done in the theme of like somebody. Like like Mark Mothersbaugh from Devo famously said that his favorite Devo song is Weird Al Yankovic's "Dare to Be Stupid," and
That's
it's not even a
awesome.
Devo song. It was just Weird Al being like, "Hey, I want to do a song like Devo."
That's awesome, man. Yeah, what
Yeah,
a talented guy.
yeah, absolutely.
The other thing
Genius.
that really kicked things off. Clearly, we're talking about the Seattle music scene a moment ago with Queensryche and then Nirvana. Pearl Jam came out at this time, also in 1991, which is when the "Smells Like Teen Spirit" video came out. They released "Jeremy," which was a very powerful video for that time, and another video that I'll forever remember. Do you remember watching that like around that period of time, or is this something you watched later on? Like, what were your thoughts on that?
Oh, I remember watching that video for the first time. Like I remember watching it, and I want to say it was summer of 1992 ish, somewhere around there. I just remember the classroom almost looking like an art exhibit. Like if I
Mm,
go to like like if I go to like an art exhibit now and just like the whites and the reds, and sometimes you have like the brown tables. I just remember that's what when I see that, I think of the Jeremy video.
what's funny is everything in that school looked miserable. Like, and I get that was the point of the video, obviously, and the song. But to me, that was just like that's how every school that I've ever been in felt like. Like it just felt fucking miserable to be there.
It was miserable and cold, but yet it was pretty. It's
Mm,
that video is very pretty. It's I mean, mean can be pretty, you know? It's definitely not, when I say pretty, I don't mean that it's happy. It's quite the opposite. That
right.
there's something very pretty about it. It looks very nice. Aesthetically, it looks very nice.
Yeah, that I don't know. That video is just really powerful. Like I don't feel like a lot of people talk about like not to say that people don't talk about other things, but I feel like things like the subject of love gets touched on all the time in music. Obviously, there's good reason for that. But to have something so different, like that's really what stood out to me. Like this video was so different, talking about something so deeper than most of the stuff, that I was used to seeing at the time. Not to say that they didn't exist because there was other videos that did, but this video just hit me in a different way.
It was also, if you notice, if you listen to Jeremy on the radio, they never bleep out fuck.
I think they
It's
started doing that later on, but they definitely did not do that back in the
no
day because
two
people didn't hear him like what he was saying. I don't think they could understand that he was saying fuck.
no, but there's two songs. There's two songs in musical history that I know of. There's probably a few more, but there's two that always stick out to me that they don't bleep out the fuck. Jeremy seemed like a harmless little fuck, and the Who's "Who the fuck are you?" Like that's just on classic rock radio all the time, just throwing out the fuck, like just throwing it out there. But yeah, that and Jeremy, they're the two. They're for whatever reason the FCC is cool with them.
Yeah, that's bizarre, man. I wonder why. I don't. It's so strange.
But yeah, Seattle was definitely doing big things there, obviously, because Soundgarden had some banger videos.
Oh, I mean, Black Hole Sun, like that's another video. Who can forget?
Yeah, and it was almost like a build up to the Black Hole Sun video because the previous record you had the Rusty Cage video, which was really cool. Johnny Cash did a great cover of it.
Oh
Actually,
yeah,
won a
both
Grammy
of
for
those
it.
renditions are excellent. I couldn't even tell you which one I liked more, but they're
Yeah,
probably Johnny Cage's actually or Johnny Cage.
Johnny Cage. Johnny Cage wins fatality.
I'm also on the video game show. If you guys didn't notice, sorry about that. It creeped together.
Johnny Cage, country legend Johnny Cage. But yeah, well, I mean, Rick Rubin was just doing amazing things with Johnny Cash from the moment they met in the 1993 to Johnny's passing, and even released two records after Johnny's passing. But going back to the Soundgarden video, I remember the Rusty Cage video just being really really neat, and then being so excited when the new Soundgarden came out and that Spoon Man video hit. And I remember thinking that was like the coolest thing I had seen up to that time, even though it was just a guy rocking spoons. And then, and it was actually the Spoon Man that wrote the song about some guy in Seattle with just stands on the street playing spoons.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
And
awesome.
yeah, there's a cool story behind that. And then the Black Hole Sun video hit. It was just like, whoa, what is this?
I mean, to me, I didn't research this, so it may be accurate, it may not be accurate, but this looks like something Tim Burton would have made. This reminds me, like, as soon as I see it, I think of like Edward Scissorhands and shit.
Well, what's funny is I'm gonna have to see who did that. I don't think it was Tim Burton, but let me. I just because I want to know, because now
But it
I'm
looks,
like really
doesn't it look like
curious.
something Tim Burton would have made if he made a music video?
Sure. A little too bright, but then again, he's made bright movies. Edward Scissorhands is bright at times. Obviously,
Mhm.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is bright at times. But I just normally think of oh, Big Fish was a bright old movie, but I
Big
normally
Fish
think
was
of
awesome. Awesome
yeah,
movie.
great movie. I just normally think of Tim Burton with blacks and whites and grays. But let me see. Black Hole Sun video director. Well, it's actually the first result. The guy was Howard Greenlaw was the guy's name, and I can't find anything else that he did. So kudos to him
He
because
might have went
the
on to like do
video.
movies or something. Like I
That's what
can
I'm
see
trying
his
to.
career kind of going on an upward trajectory after doing that video.
He did okay. I found he did some Pet Shop Boys videos. He really only did videos. That's it's kind of crazy. He did a Placebo video in 2009.
Oh, dude, I love Placebo. They're awesome, man. Was that on the
Oh,
Meds record?
it was the Battle for the Sun record, the one they put out after Meds.
Oh, okay, okay.
But this guy made some cool videos. He did one for Maiden, the Rainmaker video. That's cool. Looks like in the 80s he did a lot of he was hanging out with the Pet Shop Boys in Big Country. That's cool.
That is cool.
Good for him.
I just
Yeah.
can't believe he never did like I don't know, man. Black Hole Sun was such a the way it shot, the way I love the way everybody's faces like you have like those like they extend like the smiles and they change people's faces and shit. That is so cool. So cool.
That's a video. I don't even know if I rewatched it when I saw it on the list because I was just like, oh, I've seen that video 7 million times and it is perfectly stamped in my brain.
That's probably another one that deserves to be on the epic 90s videos once we get there. One that I would say would not be there, but also is definitely relevant at the time is REM's Losing My Religion.
Okay. See, I have a strange relationship with this. It was very exciting for me when this blew up and it was like the biggest thing out there because REM is one of my favorite bands of all time. They would be a top 10 favorite band ever for me, maybe even top 5. But I just remember kind of having that was like my first relationship with being annoyed when everybody else likes something you like. That was like that thing. I've eventually grown out of that, but I remember really not liking this record because it was so damn popular and you couldn't get away from it. And now I listen to it quite regularly. I love this record. I love this song. The video is just it's beautiful. It's beautiful to look at. Again, going back to Jeremy where I was talking about aesthetics, like it's just kind of a perfect video. It almost feels like a short film.
Yeah, it's all set on like it looks like it's on a set and like they have like props and stuff around and like they're not like showing it as they're showing it almost like behind the scenes like this is how you like build a set and do different stuff, they have like the angel wings and things like that. But it definitely stands out in your mind as being different because it was pretty low budget, man. Like they didn't do anything spectacular in that video, but it burned itself into your head.
Yeah, but whoever was working on it were very talented people. Like and it was a labor of love, you know?
Right. It didn't
And it
need to be a high
shows.
budget video, not for that song, It would have been weird probably if it was a high budget video.
Yeah, well, it would be weird. It would be weird for REM because REM were kind of lo-fi indie band that just somehow became this like gigantic act. Like that, I don't that was never in the cards for them. They were never planning on that. They actually had at one time had a meeting about what the band was supposed to do. This was like maybe 1987, where their decisions were to either break up or just kind of do it as a weekend warrior kind of thing. Like we have other jobs. We need lives. Music is not going to be our livelihood, but we do like playing with each other. We like playing shows and we like writing songs. So that was where they were going to go. And then Document came out and kind of blew up with, it's the end of the world as we know it. And then they trudged forward.
I came to that band late as well. Them and the same thing with Live, who I kind of equivalate to each other all the time. Like probably because they were just super popular around the same time. But Live and them both, I was not really into until I got much older. Probably like in my 30s is when I started listening to like REM and Live. And man, they have some really good songs, both of them.
Yeah, those honestly, the REM discography that they did before they made the major label jump to Warner, their catalog on IRS Records, I would put up with any band that ever existed. I just think it's some of the best music ever put out.
And then going towards like, I would say something that's this video is very different. So this video, I would say probably had more of like a medium to, I wouldn't say high budget. I guess I would say medium budget because there was a lot of editing and stuff involved. But this was the first time I've ever heard of them. This is the first time I saw them was Weezer's Buddy Holly, which is a song that I absolutely loved. And I enjoyed the video quite a bit. They had like a whole Happy Days themes. They even like, you know, I'm guessing they like edited in like parts of Happy Days. Like the Fonz was in there. Obviously that wasn't Henry Winkler at that time doing the Fonz. They incorporated it into the video. Like they meshed the things together in the editing process, which I thought was super cool.
It's a very interesting video, and it kind of represents the band at that time perfectly. Because if you remember the video that came out before that, would have been the Sweater song. That was kind of the song that launched Weezer to where, you know, hey world, we're Weezer. But that video felt more like a Nirvana video. It was, it didn't feel like Weezer.
That's a great point.
The Weezer Buddy Holly video, that was like, hi, we are fucking Weezer. This is who we are. We're having fun. We're writing songs in our garage, but they're going to make you want to hop and skip and dance. And I mean, when you think about it, there aren't many bands, I can't really think of any besides Weezer off the top of my head, that almost became a genre in themselves. Like other bands that you're just like, oh, they're kind of like Weezer rock. Like Weezer rock is a thing.
Yeah, like, it's almost like I think people would describe it as like nerd rock or something like that. But I know there were some bands I was talking about that to me that's how I describe them, Weezer rock. Like that band Weston I was talking about that I love so much, pop punk, but they're definitely Weezer rock. They wear their Weezer fandom on their sleeve, and you can tell. That whole time there was a lot of those bands that were like Weezer just kind of made it cool, like Not a Surf popular. That song is definitely Weezer-esque.
Yeah, definitely. We're gonna play Fender Stratocasters, and we're gonna, you know, we're not trying to be the toughest guys in the world. We're gonna write songs that you're gonna remember.
Yep.
And that was definitely what Weezer was doing, and I love the Buddy Holly video.
Yeah, me too, man.
Yeah, and it's just kind of funny though. It's like thinking about them and even like Pearl Jam. There's some of these bands that made these videos that we're talking about, and then their next records would have 0 videos because they were like, we hate music videos now.
yeah, that was definitely a turn for them for sure when they put out Pinkerton, which nobody loved at first, and now everybody adores that album.
That was the record that got me into Weezer.
To be truthful, I did I liked Weezer's Blue album a lot, but that's Pinkerton I never listened to. Like I liked a couple of Weezer songs. I got more into music, like I said, later. When I went back and started listening to Weezer, I got the Blue album first. Like, oh, this is pretty good. And someone's like, no, you gotta listen to Pinkerton. I was like, all right, listen to Pinkerton. I was like, oh my God, this is 10 times better than the Blue album. Like, how the fuck how was this not a bigger thing?
Subject material, I would say. It's a much more personal record. People weren't really ready for personal until 2000.
That makes sense.
I feel like that record was kind of 2 or 3 years before its time. Is kind of how I feel about Pinkerton. Late 90s, early 2000s was more of their, you know, emo hits, and people are all about the personal shit. And Pinkerton just kind of was like kind of on its island of its own. But that was the record I borrowed from a friend senior year of high school, 2000. And just fell in love with it. And then I was like, oh, let me go back and listen to that thing I didn't like when it came out, which was the Blue album. And my God, this is like a masterpiece. Like, I love this record.
Well, there was a few songs. I agree with you for the most part that you know, having like a more serious tone didn't break through too much in the 90s. But one song that definitely did which was the first video I remember seeing from them. I'm sure it probably wasn't their first video, but it was the one that stands out most in my mind was No Doubt's Don't Speak, where they're basically just playing in the garage. But that song is obviously deeply personal.
Yeah, I remember that wasn't the first one I saw of theirs. The first one I saw of theirs would have been the Just a Girl video. And actually my introduction to the band was when they were playing live at the MTV Beach House, and they did Just a Girl and a cover of Sailing On by Bad Brains. And I was just like, yo, who is this
They played
band?
a Bad Brains song?
Yeah. I'm like,
wow.
they got a hot singer and they're covering Bad Brains. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go buy this record. You know, that was my introduction to No Doubt.
Yeah, man, that I won't go on a tangent this time. I'm gonna leave it at this, but Tragic Kingdom, in my opinion, is one of the best records I've ever heard in my life, like start to finish. Tragic Kingdom is like almost a perfect record, if not a perfect record in my mind.
I mean, teach their own. I kind of grew out of No Doubt pretty quick, but they definitely left. I mean, to say they didn't leave an indelible mark on pop culture would be a lie, because they absolutely did. They were a very big deal there, and I do remember that Don't Speak video, and I remember really liking it at the time. When Tragic Kingdom was a thing, I definitely was on board.
You got to go back and listen to the whole thing, man, start to finish. I'm telling you, that album was great. I know you're not crazy about 90s like ska, but man, I truly love that album a lot.
Yeah, well, 90s ska that I love. That's the thing. Like, speaking of ska videos, to go on real quick, man, that Boss Tones Impression That I Get video was pretty damn cool. I liked that.
Yeah,
I was a fan of that. And I remember thinking, getting mad when people started liking things that I liked. I'm like, where were you 2 years ago when I had my Boston shirt? And I remember telling my brother, like, the backlash of that song amongst fans because it was just so popular. And my brother's like, I don't get it. It's just kind of a great song. And I'm like, you know what? It is. It's just a great song.
I think that's something that happens to you when you're older. I think you try to be like cooler by knowing things that other people don't know. And like, as you get older, it's just like, well, I'd rather you guys just know this because it's kind of cool. Like, you should probably just check this out.
Yeah. It's like when the Phillies won the World Series and like there were fans mad at like the front runners. I'm like, why are you mad at the front runners? I don't want there to be like 6 people at the parade. I want everybody on board. Have fun. It's a party.
Yeah, who cares, man? Like, whatever. Let's switch gears. Let's get into something disgusting. 9 Inch Nails, Closer. Holy shit! What video? There's not a video like this that I can even think of that is like. How do you describe this video?
1970s German horror film made in the 90s. To think that this was on mainstream daytime MTV is absolutely mind-boggling. Like, I remember, the record before this one, Broken. The big video for 9 Inch Nails was Wish, and that was just kind of just not a whole lot going on. There wasn't anything spectacular about it, but it was cool, and I became a fan of the band, and I became a fan of Trent and whatever he was doing immediately. But when the Closer video hit, it was one of those videos I had to like kind of turn off the TV if my mom was coming in the room. Not because she would like be mad at me for watching it, but just because I was be kind of embarrassed. Like, just kind of like not embarrassed by the quality, because obviously it's a masterpiece, but just kind of like, I don't want to see my mom to see that I'm watching this. Like, it was just kind of weird like that.
I mean, as soon as the video starts out, it's the heart that has like a beat to the music, and then it starts like squirting out the blood a little bit. Like, oh, it's so awesome. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Trent's a genius. He made his own videos, and it shows. Like, he's that. I'm like kind of like at a loss for words. Like, I remember there was quite a few videos off that record. There was the March of the Pig video comes to mind, but Closer could have been entered in a film festival and won an award for short film.
Yeah, man, I could definitely see it. I mean, that is really like watching a film. Like, even if you like, obviously there's a song there. You can turn off the song and just watch it and be like, oh my God, what the hell is happening? Like, imagine tripping balls and then watching that video. You'd be so freaked out by the end of it.
You'd be like, you'd be like, help me out. I need something. I need to pick me up. Give me the Black Hole Sun video.
Seriously, man.
Give me Jeremy. Give me Jeremy. I need to cheer up.
I mean, there's few videos I would say to that caliber, though. I mean, that video is so crazy, man. Like, and when he did creepy things, like when he had himself suspended on those wires, like just spinning around, like the way his body was like contorted, was like, how did you think of that? Why did you know that would be creepy? Like, how did you get that image inside your head? Like, oh, I should do this, and this will be weird, and people will like it.
Again, man, the 90s were a special time. It was like, it always blows my mind that like 9 Inch Nails' Pretty Hate Machine came out in the 80s. Like, that is a mind-blowing thing, because 9 Inch Nails is just so ingrained as a 90s act. But like Pretty Hate Machine, Head Like a Hole, that's 80s jams. America was not ready. The world was not ready until the Downward Spiral hit the world and gave us Closer.
I got nothing but good things to say. But if you guys haven't watched Closer, just go and you can watch the whole thing on YouTube. It's an uncensored version, so that you can say fuck. If you haven't seen that video, or if it's just been a long time, you need to go back and watch it. It is truly something special.
I'd like to take a rewind back to the very beginning of the decade. One of my favorite videos would be the Faith No More Epic video.
That's a great video. And this is a good video to really see the 80s converging into the 90s, because they still have like an 80s look, but they have like a 90s kind of sound, but still like, it's like the 80s is like grasping desperately to hold on, and the 90s is pulling it away. And you can like feel that throughout the video.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Faith No More is one of those bands that is very much associated with the 1990s, but they did come out in the 80s. Epic was their big coming out party, and that was 1990, and it makes sense because there still is this definite. You're right. There's an 80s vibe to it, but that fish flopping around is so 90s. Like, that's such a 90s thing. It almost feels like that would be in the Trent Reznor video, you know. Yeah. But their outfits very 80s, and the fact that they're mixing the hip hop with the metal riffs, that feels very 1980s. But yet it's still like, okay, we're a new decade here. We're in a new place. So that's one that I think the way you describe that is perfect. It's the perfect. It's the intersection. It's the middle of the road there with the it's the crossing of the 80s into the 90s. Yeah,
go back and watch it, guys. Check it out, and you'll see and hear exactly what I'm talking about. Like, that's the best way I could describe that video. It's a good video too, and a good song.
Yeah, and another one that I love a lot. This was another one it was very weird for me that would come on TRL. But I remember watching it on New Year's Eve, very late at night, at my buddy's house, and that was the Bad Religion 21st Century Digital Boy video.
This was a video I wasn't familiar with. I had to watch it for the first time, actually for the purpose of the show. And yeah, man, that was an interesting video, to say the least.
21st Century Digital Boy video and Infected both got heavy play on a daytime MTV, which is unfortunate because they seem to think it's necessary to play those songs at every single show you go to. But this was my introduction. This was my introduction to Bad Religion. This was the moment when I watched the video and just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Like, the video had the impact. The baby just watching the TV as these what looks like the Blue Man Group are rocking out.
Yeah, it's like blue TV. Sand that they're kind of like being like coming out of and then going back into.
It's a very interesting video, and me and my friends were just like, our minds were just blown. Like, I say it was my equivalent of people watching the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, because I had to go out and buy that record the next day. I had listened to other punk rock bands before. I was already a Misfits fan. I was already a Descendants fan. But this was like the time when I realized this is what I want to be in. This is the music I want to be a part of. And it was the day you saw the Guns N' Roses posters come off the wall. It was the day I was no longer this rock and roll kid. I was a punk rocker. And it was watching that Bad Religion 21st Century Digital Boy video.
Yeah, Bad Religion is something spectacular. They have so many great songs. The video, particularly, to stay with the topic so I don't get off track and start talking about all the Bad Religion songs that I love so much. They're one of my favorite bands for sure, just like you. But the baby in front of the TV just being like basically like just very obvious if you're not paying attention. It was just saying that like we've turned technology is basically raising our children at this point. Like that's what they said back then before smartphones and tablets.
Yes, and it's funny is that the song was on a previous album 5 years before that, and then they redid it for Stranger Than Fiction. But yeah, that's what they were saying, and that was part of the appeal for me, was that this band was saying something. And that was the cool thing about the 90s too, is that intellectualism was definitely a positive. It wasn't, going back to Weezer, nerdiness was okay.
Yeah. And like you saying something different, like I said, like that Jeremy video sticks out more than most because they just said something different. You know, it wasn't the same love song that you're used to, a breakup song or whatever. It was really something different. So I can definitely, if I would have watched that back then, I'm sure I would have gotten into it the same way. And I wish I would have known about them earlier, but obviously I got them. I think I started listening to Bad Religion in high school, which would have been a few years after this record.
Yeah, they instantly became my world. It was one of those things. That was the first time I found out about internet bulletin boards and things. For all you youngins, they were your Facebook groups before Facebook.
I do want to mention a couple of videos. I want to do them in like a quicker succession, if that's okay with you. Just to kind of, I don't want to necessarily group these together, but there's a lot of alternative things. I mean, we could be here all day just under the alternative subject.
Sure.
I just want to give a shout out to like the Foo Fighters, Everlong, Green Day's Basket Case when they're playing in like the mental institution. Everlong had like that dream sequence, going back to that for a second, where like the guy just kept dreaming and waking up and like different shit would happen. That was really cool. Blind Melon, No Rain from 1993 was excellent. Also, another strange video with the child dancing in a bee outfit.
And oh, that's iconic. That video was very cool. Great record too. I would go back and I'd recommend going back and listening to that record. It's very good. Very good record.
Go back and watch the video. You'll clearly see that there was drugs involved.
Yeah. Well, of course, Shannon Hoon met his demise. R.I.P.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I mean, clearly somebody was high when they made that video. That video is fucking strange. It's cool, but it's strange. The Verb's Bittersweet Symphony was an excellent video where he's just walking down the street, essentially walking into people. People are walking into him. He's walking into other people, saying a lot about society.
If you ever want to see the best use of a Steadicam, not in John Carpenter's Halloween 1978, it's the Verve Bittersweet Symphony video. That is just an amazing use of a Steadicam on a dolly, which honestly is a very simple effect, but man, when it's done right, it's just really cool.
Yeah, and I mean the song was obviously, dude, that video had like, oh God, I want to say it was over almost like 500 million views or something like that. Like 600 million views or something, like an insane amount.
Well, it's funny. You do know about the lawsuit regarding that song, right?
No, I don't.
Yeah. So basically, that song, the whole melody that we all love so much, was just a sample from a Rolling Stones, an instrumental Rolling Stones album. The Rolling Stones did not put it out, but it was it's the Rolling Stones song "The Last Time."
Oh, really?
And there was a guy who put out a instrumental record of Rolling Stone songs, and the Verve used that as a sample. So now if you look at the credits, the songwriting credits on that song, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards get songwriting credits.
Oh wow, that's crazy, man. I'm sure they made some money off of it too.
Yeah, so just a little bit of interesting trivia of useful stuff that I know.
That's crazy. That's very interesting though. 3 other great songs from that section of time, I would say you brought up the Breeders' Cannonball, so I'll let you talk about that in a moment. Then Jim Blossom's Hate Jealousy, and one for me that was big was Prodigy. But talk about what you want to in those three.
I would say Prodigy just made some really cool videos, dude.
Smack My Bitch Up.
Yeah.
Firestarter.
And Firestarter. And I remember having a friend from England who had been talking about Prodigy for a little while, and like how I'd really like them. And it was just kind of one of those things where I didn't really, I just, it wasn't somebody whose taste I really trusted. And then when I saw the Firestarter video, it was just like, whoa, okay, all right. He was right. Dave was right. I do apologize, Dave. I doubt you're listening, but I apologize.
You never know. Yeah, man, Prodigy was like huge for me. Like I listened to the hell out of that record. I didn't listen to really them before that, but I've heard a lot of their older stuff is better. There was a weird thing with their name. I don't know if you might know more than I did, but during this time they just called themselves Prodigy, and then before that they were called The Prodigy, and after this I think they went back to being called The Prodigy again. Is that correct? Am I wrong, or what the hell happened with that?
You know, I don't have too much of The Prodigy or Prodigy in my encyclopedia, so I'm not entirely sure. That's probably a fun thing to read up on, though.
Yeah, it was weird. Why would they have it, then lose it, and then I think they ended up taking it back again?
Yeah, there might have been some sort of legal issue there, but I can't imagine. Or maybe it was just easy in America to just say Prodigy.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think they lost The Prodigy right around the time they broke out in the States.
Oh yeah, when that record came out, they were just called Prodigy, and I think that was the first point that they were called Prodigy.
Yeah, as far as the Breeders go, that Cannonball video was just kind of very, very minimalistic, but I just remember being like thinking it was the coolest thing that there's Kim Deal, just this chick just rocking out and falling in love with that band. And then of course I would become a bigger fan of hers when I would get into the Pixies.
Oh, I didn't know she was the Pixies.
Yeah.
No
She's
idea.
a bass player for the Pixies. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Kim Deal. Yeah. So that's another great 90s video would be the Pixies Here Comes Your Man video. Talk about a perfect pop song. It's just one of the greats. As far as Jim Blossom's Hey Jealousy goes, I just remember thinking that was just kind of I don't want to say a perfect song, but it kind of is, you know.
It's definitely catchy.
It's what I always want to do a karaoke, and it's you could tell songwriting just came naturally to them,
without a doubt.
And I would be remiss. They're one of those bands that Jim Blossom's one of those bands that I catch a lot of flack for really digging. I've seen them like 6 times. They're great every time.
I think they're good. I don't know why I need to give you flack for it. I think they're good.
Yeah, well, there's a couple 90s bands that people do that with, and another one we didn't write down, and I don't know how we didn't write down, because they had some pretty big songs, and they had one extremely iconic video, and it's a band that I love very much, and that would be Soul Asylum. And
yeah, we didn't mention it at all.
Yeah, I know, and it's weird for me. I mean, the Runaway Train video, you couldn't get away from that, and it saved some kids. Like, there were some kids who were found because of that song, and it's funny is that a lot of people will write them off as a one-hit wonder, and I'm like, no, they had a bunch of hits on that record. They had Black Gold, which had a really cool video. They had Leave Without a Trace. They had Somebody to Shove, which I think is one of the great songs. But here's the kicker: they have a bunch of hits. They only have one number one, and that was actually on their next record. And their number one hit, their only song to ever hit number one in America, was Misery, which had a very cool video as well. And I love more of their discography pre their hits, but their hits were fun, and they were very much part of the 90s. And I can't believe that I did not mention Soul Asylum before we did the show notes.
Oh, it's fine. I mean, we're just definitely, look, people are going to probably leave comments and stuff about bands you missed. That's up to you. Like, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't think that's part of the fun.
Right. We're not going to be able to mention every single band that had any sort of relevance in the 90s. We're just doing the ones that really stood out to us. So if we forget a band, clearly that's going to happen at some point. So yeah, you can leave a comment and let us know. Just don't be an asshole. That'd be cool. But one last major one under alternative, which this band is going to be under different genres depending on the song. But Beastie Boys Sabotage from 1994. What an awesome, awesome video. I would say it's probably one of the more iconic videos of that era. But obviously, Beastie Boys is like a hip hop band from New York City. They started out in the 80s with more like old school style. Obviously, their sound evolved over time, but this was clearly a rock song, alternative song that they were essentially also rapping on.
Well, they started. Well, if you want to talk about Beastie Boy origins, they started out as a hardcore band, took their name because they wanted to have the initials of Bad Brains.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes, that's where it comes from. MCA produced the second to last Bad Brains record before he passed. But yeah, the Sabotage video, god damn, that's a top 5, if not top 2 or 3 greatest music video of all time. Those characters that they portray in the in the video,
they're making fun of like Magnum PI or something, right? Something like that.
I would even think before that. I would think even more like your Kojaks or your.
Oh yeah,
but like, yeah, it's definitely supposed to be those gritty crop dramas,
exactly.
And
you got the big mustaches, the aviators.
Yeah, and those costumes are ridiculous, and there's one of those things where I feel like they could have hosted SNL as those characters. And it would have been the greatest episode of all time.
They would have just played those characters in every scene.
Yeah, like they'd be that. It would be such a meta thing. Like it would be like the character as another character. Like I think it would be the coolest.
Absolutely, man. And that song it hits you, man. It's so good. So good.
That whole album is great. I mean, honestly, if you've never listened to, the Beastie Boys Ill Communication record, buy it yesterday and listen to it start to finish. I think it's their best record. And I know I'm going to catch a lot of crap for that, but I think it's the best Beastie Boys record ever made.
Yeah, I've listened to a lot of their songs, but not like full records front to back, so I couldn't speak to that myself. Sabotage is one of my favorite songs by them. I think Intergalactic might be my favorite song from them, just because it was a different time and era. But I could totally see someone picking, Party or Sabotage for sure.
And really, real quick note, cool show story was right after this record came out. The Beastie Boys put out a compilation called "Some Old Bullshit," which was just a compilation of their early hardcore punk demos and their first Cookie Puss demo, which was their first hip hop record. And they did a couple surprise shows for it. And one of them was at the Electric Factory in Philly. So I got to go see the Beastie Boys do a fucking hardcore set. One of my first shows.
That's so awesome, man.